Yes.
So, Catharina, you come from Sweden and
Yes.
you work on gender issues in Sweden.
Yes.
Yeah? Tell me a bit about what you do and why you're here. Really.
Okay. And yes, I have a company of my own nowadays, but until 2007 I worked for the government at the regional level. Mm-hmm. And this is where I really worked very hard with gender mainstreaming, because you need to be inside an organization in order to be successful with gender mainstreaming. And I worked for the governor of the county of Östergötland, which is 200 kilometers south of Stockholm. It's about 500,000 people living in the county of Östergötland. And at this working place, there are people who are responsible for different issues, like agricultural issues, like taking care of the animals, veterinär, it's called in Swedish, social issues, environmental issues, trafficking issues. And my job was really to support the governor, because it's always like that when you are working with gender mainstreaming, that it must be the management that say this is important, this is what we are going to do. And I was only there in order to be support for the governor. Mm-hmm. And as a support for the governor, we made an action plan. And in this action plan, it was written what was going to be achieved 2008, 2009, and
Can I just interrupt you a bit? What was your biggest challenge?
The biggest challenge was really, first of all, it was to make the governor understand that this was his responsibility and not mine. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then, of course, after that, there was the middle management. They are always very hard when you work with gender mainstreaming, because when you work with gender mainstreaming, you come and knock at the door and say, really, you are not doing your job in the proper way. You must do it in another way, because we want you to be successful, but with other targets than you've had before. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And nobody really wants to hear that I'm not doing my job in a proper way. Yes. I am professional. Don't come in here and tell me how I am going to do my job. So the middle management. Mm-hmm. But when you have a target plan, you write down the targets, and then what kind of education you need, the methods you need in order to reach the targets, and then as a support, how am I going to look at the targets? Mm-hmm. At what time shall I measure how much we have achieved? An action plan for gender mainstreaming. We have an action plan for the government in Sweden for gender mainstreaming. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And also for all the county administrative boards all over the country.
Right. Can you tell me something in your work and in this action plan that could inspire me?
Yes, because it's very important when you work with gender mainstreaming that you really try to find your success points, because it's very hard to do it and only go on for this every day. So I try to give you some example. For example, if the persons who work with the social things, at the county administrative board, they had their targets was to help the local authorities in their work with taking care of the elderly persons, and to look if they did it in the proper way, as the government wanted them to do it. And then I educated all the people who worked at this social department, and they went out to the local authorities and to the elderly homes, and then they asked them, what do you get help from the national local authorities? What kind of help do you get? And yes, you can get help for cooking and tidying up in the home, which is normally what women do in a home. But you don't get help for paying the bills, or taking the snow away when it's snowing a lot, or making the electricity if something is broken. You don't get help for these things, which is those things men do in a home. So then they came home and they looked at this at the county administrative board, and they said it's peculiar. You can get help for the things that women do, which means that men get the help. Mm-hmm. But women, they can cook and they can still tidy up themselves, but they won't get any help for what they are not able to do. This is what gender mainstreaming is, mm-hmm. to find out that we really treat people differently because of their gender, mm-hmm. their sex. Mm-hmm. And after that, it's up to those who make the decision to look at this and say, is this right? Mm-hmm. Do we want to have it like this or not? Mm-hmm. Because when you work with gender mainstreaming, you can either decide that, yes, we will only give help for food and tidying up to everybody. And that will be cheap. Mm-hmm. Or the other way, you can say, we will give help for everything. Right. And that will be much more expensive. Right. So this means that will be political decisions in order to take the next step. Mm-hmm. So gender mainstreaming is about showing the reality, showing that we treat men and women, boys and girls in different ways, and also try to show if you treat them in different ways, which means that sometimes you should give all the help to the boys, mm-hmm. or sometimes you should give all the help to the girls. But there need to be decisions. Right. So the politicians must say, we want to gender mainstream, but then the politicians get the issues back in their lap. In their lap. And then they have to make another decision. Mm. This is very hard for them to understand.
Yes, thank you.